Anyway, so welcome to our presentation today, our webinar focusing on employer services orientation entitled Employer Services 101 Orientation, hosted by myself, Christopher Barnes, and Stephanie Sue Rowell. And so here's a brief look at what we will be covering in our presentation this afternoon. So as you all can see, we'll give a brief introduction of ourselves so you can know more about who we are and also know what we look like so that when you see us on site, if you have any questions, you can ask us anything that you might have. We'll then go into upcoming events and deadlines, talk about registration as well as on-site check-in and the difference, and then interview scheduling, the mail system, which I'm sure plenty of people are curious about, the standard versus premium event items, hotel reservations, which are currently all filled, and then the recruitment receptions, which are all currently sold out. We'll discuss the question hours that we have planned for the next couple of weeks. Then we'll also give you all some suggestions and recommendations before arriving on site in Indianapolis in March. Then last but not least, we'll go into on-site services for employers, and then some of the frequently asked questions that we receive as employer services, and then entertain any other questions that you all might have for us. And so without further ado, going to introductions. So I guess I'll go first. My name is Christopher Barnes. I am currently a college advisor for the People program, which is a high school to college pipeline program in Wisconsin, pretty much in a nutshell trying to retain the very academically talented underrepresented students of Wisconsin here in the state by giving them tuition waivers. Before coming here as a college advisor, I served as a residence hall director for 3 years at Texas State University, go Bobcats, in San Marcos, Texas. I'm originally from the Chicago area. I did my schooling there as well. And so now, move over to Stephanie Sue.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephanie Sue Rowell. I am currently the Associate Director for Campus Programs at Western Carolina University. I've been in this role for about 6 months now. Previously served as various levels in housing and residence life programs across the state of North Carolina. I have been involved with TPE as an employer for every year that TPE has been going, so I have a long history on the participant side as an employer, and I'm happy to be working with Chris to coordinate your experience this year.
Indeed. There's two of us. So now moving on to the first slide, focusing on upcoming events and deadlines. I'm not going to go into detail about the events and deadlines coming up. Just kind of talk about some of the most important points to keep in mind. So as you all can see, we have the question hours coming up, and we'll talk more about what those are towards the middle of the presentation. But the one date that I do want to point out is the February 12th date, which is the end of standard registration rate. And so for those of you who have not registered yet, that is a very important date because that is when the prices do increase. So we definitely encourage you all to complete your registration before February 12th. And then also on March 9th is when we will continue to have registration on site. And so what that means is that for those of you who have not registered yet for TPE, if you come to Indianapolis and you still haven't registered but you're interested, then we will have you stop at one of the desktop computers in the Employer Services workroom and have you create a TPE account and then register that way, and then from there check in. For those of you who have already registered for TPE, you're good to go. When you arrive on site on March 9th, you will then check in with us, and so then we'll talk about what check-in entails later on in the presentation, but that will be from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on March 9th. Also during that time, we will have an employer orientation, which is the first part. So for the early birds who do arrive earlier in the day, we will have one orientation that evening, and then for those of you who maybe arrive a little later or who are kind of tired, that's fine. We will hold another employer orientation on March 10th. Either in the morning or early midday. We're still working out the details for that, but when we do solidify those details, we will inform all of you all. So now I just want to talk about employer registration. So for those of you who have already registered, thank you. So you're good to go. However, for those who have not, just kind of glance over some of the details in regards to creating an account and registering. So the first thing that you have to do in order to register is actually create a TPE account. So you want to go ahead and insert all your required institutional information. And you can see from the screenshots how that will look. And what is actually included within your registration will be one standard job credit and then one standard interview table. We'll go more in detail about what those are later on, but just in a nutshell, the standard job credit is a credit that can be used to market one position to only to candidates who have registered to attend TPE Onsite in Indianapolis. And then the one standard interview table is a 6 feet long table that you can use for your interviews, and it comes with 2 chairs. Continuing on with employer registration, once you have completed your registration, you will have access to the employer dashboard, and so the dashboard is like the hub of all the information that you will need as an employer. And so from there you can draft event postings, you can purchase additional items via the dashboard, and you can also search for candidates, and you can click search candidates to begin viewing candidate profiles. One cool function that we have recently added is once you click the search candidates, to the right there is an area, I do believe it says search individuals, and so with that you have the ability to search by last name or the first letter of someone's last name or by candidate ID number, and so that's very helpful, especially for those who are doing searches in which you might have like 3 or 4 people on your search committee, and maybe you're dividing things up, so one person might have A through C and then someone else might have D through F, so on and so forth. So they can just type in one letter of a certain last name, and literally all the last names with that beginning letter will pop up. All right, so the employer check-in, as we discussed earlier, will be Wednesday, March 9, 2016, from 5 to 8 p.m. located in the employer workroom. So when you do come to check in, you at that time will pick up your registration packet, and so your registration packet will include name tags for your teammates, your table assignments, TPE on-site event schedule, interview hall schedule, and interview hall map. Interview scheduling. So this is actually something, this is a function that will be added to your dashboard at the end of January, so be looking out for that. But when it does pop up, you will be able to actually schedule interviews with candidates. And so you just simply click TPE on-site schedule, and then from there you will be able, if you can look at the small circles, you will be able to actually click schedule interview or add personal event. And so some of you all who are new to TPE are probably wondering what exactly do we mean by personal event. And so personal event is what you can use to block off personal time within your schedule. And so we highly encourage you all to block off personal time for yourselves. So one of the most important personal events you can have is lunch. Because I could not imagine doing 7 or 8 hours of interviewing and not having any breaks at all. So you definitely want to schedule lunch breaks for each day, but also maybe schedule like a few water breaks or coffee breaks, or just times to just like, you know, collect your thoughts, talk to some of your colleagues about the previous candidate who you just interviewed, write some notes, things of that nature. And so we definitely encourage you all to utilize the personal event button to block off periods throughout your schedule for personal time. All right, TPE Mailing System. And so what we did with this page was that we chose 4 questions that we oftentimes receive through email from various employers curious about the mailing system. And so we decided to put them on this presentation, and we'll answer them as such. And so the first one being, how does the TPE on-site mail system work? which is a good question. So pretty much, it's kind of like Pony Express between the employers and candidates in the sense that this is how employers can directly communicate candidates outside of email, and it's also a way for candidates to directly contact employers outside of email as well. And so what you will simply do is create, well actually we have the message to candidate forms for you. And so you're probably wondering what is a message to candidate sheet or slip, sorry. And so that slip is a piece of paper in which we ask you to fill out the information, so the details of who it's going to, who it's from, position ID number, table, so on and so forth. And that is how you can communicate with candidates. And so as you can see to the left of your screen, this is the example or an example of the message to candidate slip. Another question that we receive is, can I create my own message to candidate slip? And the answer to that is yes. However, we are asking you all to follow the guidelines on this screenshot to the left. So if you do create your own message to candidate slip, it needs to have the same information as displayed on this slip to the left on your screen. But keep in mind that we will definitely have enough message to candidate slips for you, so you do not need to create your own. But if you just happen to create your own, they need to follow the guidelines to the left. And then we usually get questions about the mailboxes. And so in regards to the actual mailbox, each employer department will receive a mailbox that you can check, and so that is where your mail will be delivered. The candidates have their own mailbox room, and so when you send a message, it will be picked up by a TPE intern or perhaps a volunteer who is helping us out. It will be delivered to the candidate via their candidate mailbox. And so, as I was saying before, one question that we commonly get is how big are the mailboxes? And so, as someone who is a visual learner, it helps me to kind of compare it to like various objects, which can kind of help you better understand like how big the space is. And so in a nutshell, the mailbox is about 9.75 inches wide, so it's about the width of a green 32-ounce Gatorade bottle. If you were to lay it down on its side, it's about that wide. It's about 12.5 inches deep. So about the size of a standard foot-long sandwich from Subway or a foot-long ruler. And then the mailbox is about 2.5 inches high, which is about the standard height, maybe a little taller than a standard business card. And so that's the mailbox. So as you can tell by those dimensions, it's not a very large space. And so for those of you who are planning to bring gifts that you know will not be able to fit in there, we highly encourage you all to give those gifts at the table, maybe before or after you interview your candidates. So now, I kind of want to talk about the standard versus premium items as well as the cost. And so as you can see to the left of your screen are the standard items as well as the cost for those standard items. And then to the right are the premium items and their cost. And you can also find this information at the link at the very bottom of the page, the blue link, the placementexchange.org conference /employers /. That information is about midway down on that page. And so as you can see, standard registration is what everyone receives unless you decide to upgrade your registration. And so the standard registration includes one standard table as well as one standard event job credit. And so as I said before, the standard interview table is a 6 feet long table that comes with 2 chairs. The standard event job credit is a job credit that can be used to market a job posting only to candidates registered for TPE Onsite. However, if you would like to upgrade one or maybe both of those items, then you can. And so that's where the premium registration comes into play. So if you're interested in upgrading your event job credit, then you can for $195 by February 12th. Or if you would like to upgrade your interview table, you can, which is $150 by February 12th. And so now I'll kind of talk about the difference between the two. So the premium interview table is actually like a whole area So it's actually an 8 feet by 6 feet space that is surrounded by black curtains that are 8 feet tall to the sides and to the back of the space. And within that space, you will receive one 6 feet long table as well as one 4 feet long table with skirts on it. And the 4 feet long table is usually used for like storage or just to like hold different notes and things of that nature, while the 6 feet table is used for the interviews. And so that is the premium interview table. The premium event job credit can be used to market one job posting to all candidates, no matter if they have registered for TPE Onsite or not. As long as they have a TPE account, they can apply for that position. And for more information, as I said before, you can click on the link at the very bottom for more details. Hotel reservations. So this is getting to the good stuff. So as of right now, pretty much all of the reservations through TPE have been booked, and so we have been receiving questions from various employers who are who recently registered for the TPE Onsite, and are asking, hey, well, I didn't receive a link by email encouraging me to reserve my space for the hotel. And that's because we are currently all out of reservations at the TPE discounted rate. And so for a while we were directing people to the link on the page, as you can see, letting them know that through the convention center, but also just using this link, you would be able to find other arrangements around the Indianapolis Convention Center for hotel arrangements. But however, it seems like that link maybe does not work anymore because maybe most of the rooms on that link have been reserved as well. And so now we are directing you all. So if you have not reserved your hotel space yet, we are directing you to contact hotels individually, directly, or you can use external sites such as possibly Expedia or Kayak to possibly find available hotel rooms in that area of downtown Indianapolis. Recruitment reception space. So this space as well is sold out for both Friday and Saturday. But I will just go into some of the details of the recruitment reception space for those who are maybe still considering it and who might be interested in placing the name on the waiting list. So what is this option? The recruitment reception is oftentimes used by employers to further recruit candidates. It gives them a chance to interact with the candidate outside of a more formal interviewing space. So it also allows the employer to introduce the candidate to maybe alum or maybe other colleagues. So it gives you a chance to kind of just see like how the candidate interacts with others and maybe just help them relax and gain more information as to whether you would like to hire that candidate or not. How much does this option cost? So the reception spaces were going for $75. Where will the receptions be held? All receptions will be held at the JW Marriott Indianapolis. How do I reserve space? So now, because all of the spaces have been sold out, we are asking you all to email us, and then we will place you on the waiting list. And so the email you can contact us at, I'll actually have it on the screen at the very end as well, but it is employers@theplacementexchange.org. And then for those of you who are wondering how do you reserve food, you would simply do that through the JW Marriott, and so that is where you can take care of all of your catering needs for your recruitment reception. Employer question hours. So as we talked about, we will be introducing a new concept for employer services called question hours, and so this is actually something that we kind of grabbed from candidate services, so we definitely give them credit for this, but we found it to be a pretty cool way to get information across to employers in a very large setting. And so these question hours are designed to answer employer questions in real time, bi-weekly, and so like I said before, we will have 3 between February 3rd and March 2nd, which is the week right before TPE Onsite, and they will be 1 hour each. We will be forwarding you all more information about these coming up, but for those of you who are interested in sending questions or maybe just interested in having any of your questions answered, please continue to email employers@theplacementexchange.org, and we will continue to answer your questions in a timely manner. Man. So now I just want to kind of talk about some of the on-site services for employers. As you all can see, we do have an employer workroom that candidates are not allowed to walk into. And then likewise for the candidates, they also have a workroom that employers are not allowed to go to as well. But within inside the employer workroom, we have a help desk, which is where myself and Stephanie Sue will be sitting near the front, that will have basic office supplies, so staples, pencils, pens, paper clips, things of that nature. We'll also have the message to candidate slips, so if you've run out, you need some more, you can come up there, pick up some more for your team. And then that's also where the outgoing mail box will be. So we'll have like a little box on the table where, once you're done filling out the message to candidate form or slip, rather, you can drop it off in the box, and then one of our interns or a TPE volunteer will come by, pick it up, and then deliver it to the candidate mailroom. In that space, in the employer workroom, we also have desktop computers with internet access and Wi-Fi for those of you with portable devices. And then right next to our room is the employer mail room. And so pretty much how it works out is that the space that we have is 3 separate rooms that have like corridors in between. And so we'll be using 2 of those spaces as the actual employer workroom, and then 1 space will be used as the mail room. So we'll have a door between the mail room and the workroom so that you can easily go into the workroom from the mail room or vice versa. And then we'll also have electrical charging stations throughout the room. So for those of you who need to charge your portable devices, cell phones, tablets, laptops, you will be able to do so. Additionally, we will have solution stations throughout the convention center, and so these will be staffed with a TPE Onsite intern or volunteer who will be there to answer basic questions for you all. They will also have some basic office supplies and then also message slips as well. And so there will be 2 solution stations in the interview hall, but then there will also be 1 between rooms 101 and 110. And so here we have a list of suggestions and recommendations in regards to a packing list as well as TPE on-site preparation. So as you all can see first from the left, the packing list, we highly encourage you all to bring table decorations. So for example, tablecloths, table banners, etc. Pens and pencils. It might sound kind of crazy, but oftentimes people do need pens and pencils throughout the experience because maybe candidates might use a pen but then take it with them, so make sure you bring enough pens and pencils. Then also interview forms, and so what we mean by interview forms are the evaluations. So I know like oftentimes like in housing there might be several stages to an interview process, and so there might be different interview evaluations, and so just make sure you have all of your forms so that you're not rushing the day of to Kinko's trying to figure out how you're going to print off these forms. And then last but not least, business cards. You would think it would be really easy and simple to remember business cards, but sometimes they are the easiest thing to forget. So make sure you are bringing your business cards. And then in regards to TPE on-site preparation, we highly encourage you all to pre-schedule interviews when that is available at the end of January, as well as prep interview forms and other materials. For example, candidate resumes. So it might be really helpful for those of you who have never been to TPE to bring folders for each candidate so that you can have their resume as well as their cover letter separated from the others. So that way when it's your time to interview that candidate, you can easily go pick up their file, look at their materials before you interview them. And then also, we cannot express this enough, block out schedule time or schedule personal time for yourself. So make sure you are eating lunch, and also make sure you're taking some smaller breaks to maybe grab some water or grab coffee, so that you're not losing your mind. And then last but not least, print a list of candidate interviews for each of your interview tables. That's really helpful. Just knowing, as someone who went to TPE as an employer, having like a list of the people who you will be interviewing at your table is really helpful. So that way you can just go through the materials during some downtime, look through things, find some commonalities to to identify when you're talking with them. So it is pretty helpful. Last but not least, we have frequently asked questions. So we realize that there might be quite a few people on this call who might be curious about certain things, but maybe don't know how to word the questions, and so we figured that it might be helpful for us to display some of the questions, the most frequently asked questions, and then from there we can entertain any additional questions that we might receive from people on the call. And so the first one is, will transportation be provided to the convention center from the event hotels? No, we will not have transportation from the surrounding hotels to the convention center. However, a lot of the hotels in the area actually have a skyway that leads to the convention center, so you will be able to avoid the Midwest cold by walking through the skyway, depending on the hotel you are staying in. Second question. Where can I find shipping information for TPE? That's another good question. That will actually be posted on your dashboard towards the end of January as well. I do believe it's January 28th or 29th is when that information will be posted on your dashboard. Is it possible to categorize candidates by last name on a candidate search? If so, how? Yes. So as I was stating earlier, on the right side of that page, you will see, I do believe it says search by individual or search individual. And so then from there you can type in a person's last name, or you can type in the first letter of a last name, and then it will populate all of the names that match that description. Or you can type in the candidate's candidate number if you know that. And then last but not least, how can I volunteer for TPE? That's a really good question. There are several ways for you to volunteer with TPE. Some of the most common ways that people volunteer are as mailroom runners, and so we will have people who run from the employer workroom. They'll grab the messages within the outbox and then deliver those to the candidate mailroom, or vice versa. So there might be people who are picking up messages in the candidate workroom and then bringing those to the employer mailroom. And so you can volunteer that way. You can work at one of these solution stations if you're interested. So maybe if you're like a seasoned employer looking to get more involved, those are two ways to get involved. So we have the interest form, which is the first link in blue, and then there's another link to additional volunteer opportunities as well. And so with that being said, wonder if we have any questions. Let's see. Stephanie, did we have any questions?
We had a question about those participating in boot camp being able to pick up packets early, and we will be able to do that, so look for information on picking those up early if you're participating in boot camp, so that way you don't have to stand in line. And I think that is about the only question. Oh, and there was a question about additional chairs, and you can order those through the decorator if you would like to have more than 2 chairs for your interview team and 1 chair for your candidate.
All right. So that concludes the questions.
Oh, we have a few more coming in now.
Oh, okay, great.
So you have to use 1 login for the entire team to search for a candidate. And that would be true. So like when I was an employer with TPE, we would just share our username and password with the entire team so everybody could go in and search for candidates individually and work from it that way. We have another question, where can we get a facility layout? And that will be provided in your packet at registration. You'll receive a map of the interview hall with the facility layout. And then a question about candidates being in number in order of registration and rather having people in alpha order. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to pull up the question.
So you can download your search results into an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can sort them how you would like.
All right, do we have any other questions?
Oh, one more. Scheduling, can we select our specific time frame for example, every 30 minutes? And yes, you can designate your interview blocks how you would like when you set up your schedule. So you can do 30-minute interviews, you can do 60-minute interviews, and you can also schedule breaks for 30 or 60-minute intervals. So you can definitely set up your schedule how you desire.
All right. Do we have any other questions that we can answer? Okay.
The search list, can you filter by the last 7 days or 30 days? You know that, Chris?
Could you repeat that question again? I'm trying to...
On the list, can you filter by the last 7 days or 30 days?
Ooh, that's a good question.
When a candidate was added.
That is a really good question.
You can search by the last 30 days, 7 days, or by just today.
Awesome.
Also, in reference to the question about scheduling, over the last year, including this year, you can send interview requests to candidates for them to keep on their schedule or decline, and it automatically is removed from your schedule as well as their schedule. However, since last year, you are unable to block off time to reserve 30-day slots, or 30-minute slots or 60-minute slots. It's a matter of keeping your calendar either filled with personal time to block that time off, or keeping it clear so that you can reserve those interview requests for certain candidates. However, if the TPE Onsite staff is going to schedule interviews for you while you're on site, we cannot override your personal time slots. Only you can clear those out and replace it with interview requests. So if the question is regarding time blocks on your schedule, that is not a feature since last year.
All right.
I think that covers us with the questions.
All right, and so if we do not have any other questions, then we will go ahead and conclude the webinar for today. If you do have any other questions, please get in contact with us, and someone will respond to your question, usually within a day. And so our email address, once again, is employers@theplacementexchange.org. And with that being said, we thank you all for joining us in this webinar presentation, and we look forward to working with you all during the question hours, but also on site. Thank you, and have a good day.